Hello, and welcome back to The Fifth Star, a podcast where we are both looking for our next 5-star movie.
And today we have a special treat. We're going to be doing the original Beetlejuice.
Yes. And if we both give it 5 stars, this podcast will enter the afterlife.
Yes. And today we also have a special episode because after we review Beetlejuice, we will do a tier listing of Tim Burton's whole filmography. So all of his movies.
Mm-hmm.
So stay tuned for that.
All right, so Beetlejuice is about a couple, a nice couple, haunting a mean family. And it's kind of a whole reverse on the evil ghost's good family, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And then we learn about this Beetlejuice character that comes in later.
Yeah. So they are trapped in their own home as ghosts.
Yep.
And they're trying to exorcise the new humans who've taken over their house.
Right.
But they need the help of a bioexorcist.
That's what his title was.
And so we wrote down secretly wrote down our scores and our ratings for Beetlejuice on the other side of this whiteboard. And we are going to guess what each other gave it. So what do you think I gave it?
I think you gave it a 2.5.
Okay, so 2.5. And I think you gave it 3.5.
All right.
So we will.
I remembered the question mark.
Yes. We're on a roll. So we will give our initial thoughts for Beetlejuice, and then we'll reveal our scores.
Yep.
And then we'll go into our tier list.
Yep.
All right. So what did you think of Beetlejuice?
So I watched this was a rewatch.
Did you watch it when you were like a kid?
No.
You never saw it as a kid?
For the first time, probably 5 years ago.
Wow.
Maybe 4. I don't remember. It was for Halloween. We watched it like for a Halloween party.
That's fun.
And then so this was my second viewing. I had like really forgotten almost all of it. I only remembered that they were like ghosts haunting their house. But yeah, so it was kind of an interesting second watch because I couldn't like remember so much of it. It almost felt like a first watch.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this movie is super wacky, especially for. No, actually, a lot of 80s movies were kind of wacky.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it.
It is kind of weird. Like the 80s had this weird vibe going on. It was like with the music and the movie, like everything was just kind of like out there to the extreme.
Yeah. It's so the production design was like really Tim Burton, but like this was one of his first, big movies, right? Done in his style.
Yeah, this was his second feature.
That's
after
right. It was his second.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure,
So it was like really, really setting the tone basically for like, this is a Tim Burton movie, which like looking back on it now, I'm like, it's not super special because I'm comparing it to all his other movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's so interesting that this was like his first big one. And I was actually reading about it a little bit, and apparently, everyone was like kind of shocked by this movie.
Yeah.
Like, especially the people making it. They were like, is this gonna work?
Yeah.
Like, even Michael Keaton was like, I don't know if this is gonna work.
Yeah.
Like,
I read that like he couldn't figure out what Tim Burton wanted from this character. So he's like, And then apparently in earlier versions of the script, I mean, Beetlejuice was like, he was like even more twisted and perverted, and like he didn't want to just like marry the Winona Ryder character. Like,
oh gosh.
Yeah, he wanted to. His whole thing was he was trying to like hook up with her.
Yeah.
And so it was even more extreme and out there and
Yikes.
darker and yeah.
I heard they like downplayed some of the horror too. Like it was supposed to be more horrific.
Yeah.
And then they were like, no, we need to like gear it more towards families. So we need to like tone it down a bit so that like it was also a question of like who's the audience?
Yeah.
You know?
Because I mean, I watched it as a kid. And so I remember seeing it as a kid. I don't remember having any strong feelings one way or the other. Like, I don't remember being crazy scared or terrified.
Oh, wow. I was scared.
And I also don't remember, like, this being like, oh my gosh, this is my favorite movie ever, you know, as a kid. So I just remember watching it. But it is rated PG. But it talks about, I mean, there's a lot of sexual innuendo. There's a lot of talking about death. And
there's a lot of creepy prosthetics.
Yeah. Like, very, very creepy.
Like, I still get really creeped out when they, like, pull their face.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
So creepy.
So, and there's, like, you know, when they're in the waiting room, like, the girl who's, you know,
Split
behind the counter.
Oh.
She, like, shows, like, her wrists, like, slashed, you know, because that's, like, how she does, you know. Like, so, yeah. And so I saw this as a kid, and I rewatched it, like, for this a few days ago.
Yeah. And
so I did not remember anything at all, really. And so this was kind of felt like a totally fresh new rewatch.
Yeah.
I will say the prosthetics, the costuming, the makeup were phenomenal. Like, they were really impressive. I mean, for late 80s especially.
Yeah.
I think this movie I read had a $15 million budget back then. You know, for inflation, like, it would be like 30 million now, I guess. But, you know, 15 million. So it was still pretty small. Like, you know, Tim Burton was a fairly unknown director still. And they spent only about like $1 million of that towards like all the effects.
Wow.
So I'm guessing like makeup and prosthetics and all that stuff was part of that. So a fairly small budget. And then it won the Oscar for best makeup this year.
That year. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, wait, what?
And so that was like, I mean, I think that still holds up. It's really well done, like really impressive. All the stop motion effects, I thought were great. And then like Alec Baldwin, when he's one of the main protagonists, when he's like running with his head cut off, like I thought that was still like,
oh yeah,
like really worked, and looked pretty good. I don't know if you caught it, but this is kind of my homage to Alec Baldwin's shirt. Yeah, I mean his pattern is a little different, but it was like a black and white checkered thing. Yeah, and so Beetlejuice kind of copies his outfit at one point. So yeah, it was kind of also weird seeing like Alec Baldwin so young.
Yeah, he looked so different too.
Yeah, I mean I read one review that was like hilarious. There's like, oh, am I attracted to Alec Baldwin?
Oh dear.
But yeah, him and Gina Davis. Gina Davis was great, you know.
Yeah.
So
Winona Ryder was great.
Yeah.
And Catherine
O'Hara.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think she was my favorite character.
Okay.
And the whole like all her sculptures were and then the design of the house is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
But also I read that it was her idea to do the lip syncing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
To the Calypso song?
Yes, the Calypso. Yeah. That's what it was called.
Belafonte.
Yeah. It was like her idea to do that.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was a pretty good scene. Like I think when it first starts happening, it is like really well done and it's really funny. I just think like it goes along a little too long. Like they like to do the whole song. But it was also a nice kind of twist on, you know, the couple thinks they're possessing them and it's gonna freak them out, but
they just like it.
Yeah, in fact, I'm like, oh, that was so much fun. Overall, I would say that I kind of wasn't as into the whole story overall until Beetlejuice shows up. Like he gets sprinkled in here and there, but he really doesn't show up until halfway through the movie. To me, like the movie really kicks off and becomes like hits its stride and really becomes genuinely fun when Michael Keaton's on screen. And without him, like everything else, I don't know, like maybe it's that it feels like overly 80s campy or kind of too silly. Like it just like didn't really work for me that much, like rewatching it. Maybe as a kid, like I enjoyed it more. But it was kind of fine.
Yeah.
But then when Beetlejuice shows up, it's like, oh yeah, now we're on, you know. So like I really like just loved Michael Keaton in this. I thought he was fantastic. I don't know.
That's so interesting.
Really? You didn't like Michael Keaton?
I almost had the opposite.
No.
I really thought, like, you're right. He did do a really good job. I just, like, the character grossed me out so much that, like, every time he was on screen, I was like, oh, like, cringing because I just hated the character. But he was very compelling at being so gross and creepy.
Yeah, that means he succeeded, right?
I mean, yeah, he succeeded at being a unlikable character.
I mean, he was, oh man, like just the things that Michael Keaton brought, like the way he like played his lines, like it wasn't all just one note. Like, you know, when they're like, oh, how do you know, what are your qualifications for being scary? You know, he's like, well, I went to Juilliard and, you know, and I watched Exorcist like 100 and whatever thousand times, you know. And so like he just kind of had like a nice range. I mean, he played the really creepy, like pervert kind of angle, but then he also was just like, oh, I just like
doing bits.
Yeah. But he also like just wanted to, you know, just be free and like kind of find a way to get out, you know, out of like his kind of prison, you know, that he's trapped in his dimension. And yeah, so I don't know. He was just like a really interesting character. And like without Michael Keaton, I think Beetlejuice would never have worked. There's just so many dimensions to that character.
It does almost make it better too that like he didn't know how he was supposed to play him.
Yeah.
Like he was confused about how to play him.
Yeah, the character himself is kind of like a confused, unhinged character, right?
Yeah. So that does make it more impressive that he was able to like do it well.
Yeah, like very unpredictable.
Yeah.
Like you don't know what he's gonna do next. Any other thoughts before?
I don't think so. I do have some more thoughts, but I guess I'll wait.
Wait till spoilers.
Yeah.
I will say this because we are reviewing this because this weekend is going to be the opening of Beetlejuice. Oh no, he said it 4 times.
No. It has to be
one
the
person
same person.
Says it 3 times. Okay.
I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. So we are reviewing it in light of that coming up, and I think the fact that all of the best parts of the effects of this movie are like stop motion, like whether it be like the sandworm, yeah, which is great. Beetlejuice's face when you look from the back, like when he kind of like does the scary face thing. So like these things are all like stop motion. And there is some visual effects part of this original, like when they're in the interdimensional, like when they go outside. And I thought whenever it was visual effects, like it didn't look good, like it didn't age well at all. But all the stop motion stuff did, and that looked great. And that also is like kind of that distinct Tim Burton style.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen the trailer for the new sequel, but I really, really hope that he doesn't just do away with stop motion.
Like just CGI.
Yeah, and it's all just CGI. Because that would be like the easy way to go now in 2024.
Yeah.
And I would just be so disappointed if that was the case.
Yeah.
So I really, really hope he keeps that kind of, raw feel of like.
I'm going to be looking out for that now.
Yeah.
Be like, did they just do CGI?
Yeah, because like the way Tim Burton does stop motion is just, he has his own special touch to it.
Yeah.
All right, so you guessed that I would give it a 2.5, and I gave it a 3.5. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I was so off.
Yeah.
You guessed I would give it a 3.5, and I
Don't tell me you gave it a 2.5.
A 2.5.
No. Wow,
we just guessed each other.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, 2.5?
Yeah. No, and
I guess if you don't like Beetlejuice, you're not gonna like the movie.
Yeah. Like this rating is purely rated off my like personal enjoyment. I'm not rating it as heavily based on like the quality of the movie or like when it came out or how like
its significance.
How like unique it was. I'm mostly just rating it off of my personal enjoyment of the film.
And I think that's the way that we should rate it. I mean, that's the way I rate too. So
but I think like the main thing, and I did really enjoy a lot of the characters just like comedically. The main thing was all of the characters reacting to everything was so like, oh yeah, This is just how it is.
Mm.
That it felt so inhuman. And it honestly, like, kind of made me care. Because the characters didn't care really about what was happening, it made me not care. And I remember, like, kind of watching it.
Like,
and
when really things that should be genuinely scary are
yeah,
happening.
genuinely significant.
They're kind of, like, so flippant about it. Or just like,
they're like, immediate acceptance. Yeah. Immediate acceptance. Like, for every character in the whole thing. Like, oh, ghosts are haunting our house? Cool.
Yeah.
Like, this is fun.
Or even like the main couple, like they're like, oh, we're ghosts. Oh, yeah. I guess we're dead.
Yeah. Oh, we're dead. Oh, let's be scary. Oh, like.
Yeah.
And I get that that's like kind of part of the vibe, you know, is that like, or part of the silliness maybe. But like, I just felt like, okay, because you're disassociating, I'm disassociating. And it's like hard to latch on to, I guess.
Because even Winona Ryder's character, she's kind of like, oh, I could see ghosts. Yeah, there are ghosts in the house.
Exactly. Yeah. It felt just very like inhuman almost.
But like, you know, I think in the defense of, you know, some of the characters, like the Winona Ryder character, like that's kind of her thing. She's a goth and she's like into that stuff. And she's like,
made the most
she's
sense.
like open to it, you know? So I think that was believable. Because she's the one character that can see. Yeah. Because she's open to that.
But she wasn't really separated from anyone because everyone else ended up reacting like her too.
Yeah.
So it's like they could have made her more special in that way where it's like, oh, she's the only one who's not
freaked out.
But instead they make everyone not freak out.
Yeah. I will say, I do think the rest of her family and their friends, like it kind of is because their characters are so like rich and posh and kind of you know, snobby, you know, that they're all like, oh yeah, like this is just like the fashion, the new thing, like, you know, like that's just like, yeah, exactly, you know, and that's kind of the whole thing, like they want to make it like a attraction, you know. But I do think the thing that I kind of like didn't really like about all those characters was they just seem really random. Like the main couple, like that makes sense, they want their home back, and you know, but then this other like couple, they're I don't know. It's just kind of like, what's their deal? Like,
why are they out here?
Yeah, why are they out here? Like, it seems like they're here just for like a getaway. Like, it's almost like a beach home or something like that, like a vacation home. But then they're just like, they move in, they redecorate, renovate the whole place. And I don't know. It's just like really like random, you know? And then who's like this Otto guy? Or is it Otto? Yeah, Otto? Odo? Yeah, like the interior designer friend or whatever. It's like, what is he like a friend? Is he like are they hiring him as like a interior designer, or is he like a brother? Like he's just like always there with the couple. Yeah. Like he lives there.
Yeah.
And it was just so like random.
I think he was just their friend.
Who just like walks in and goes like, oh yeah, like this is how you should redecorate everything. Yeah. And I don't know. He was just so random.
That was random, yeah. They didn't quite establish his character.
Yeah. I will say they were unlikable, and it did make me feel like it made sense that the main couple were just like, well, if we're gonna die and the house that we love and that we spent so much time building up is gonna get bought and taken over by someone else, we just don't want it to be this couple. Yeah. Like that at least made sense.
And it was kind of ironic that like the ghosts almost were the ones being haunted.
Yeah.
Because it's like their family was so crazy and like ruining their house. They were the ones who were like stuck
kind of traumatized.
There. Yeah. And traumatized. Yeah.
Because usually ghosts are the ones who are, like you said, like doing the oppressing, and they're kind of the ones that are free to roam between our world and theirs. But our protagonists, like they're the ones that are stuck. Yeah. Every time you go outside, they go into this other dimension, you know? Like, so they're the ones that are trapped. And
I remember the first time I watched it too, I was so shocked. Like when they die.
Oh, me too.
Like, it's like, wait, what? Like, what movie is this? Like, who are the main characters? I thought they were the main characters. And then like.
Because it happens in like the second scene. I mean, it happens so quickly.
Yeah. It's like, that was very cleverly done. Like the whole beginning is great.
Yeah.
It just lost me by the end.
Yeah. Well, for me, like once Beetlejuice finally shows up,
Yeah.
like in the flesh, not like just on TV or whatever. Like the movie really takes off. And I just thought Michael Keaton was so good in this movie. He's so fantastic. Like bringing this crazy character to life and all the mannerisms, all the comedic side of it, the creepiness, like he just brings it all together.
Yeah.
In a way that I don't think anyone else could have done. It made like if it wasn't for that, I would actually have been kind of disappointed and not really have been looking forward to the new sequel, Beetlejuice. But like the fact that Michael Keaton was so good and so enjoyable, it makes me really excited for the new one.
Okay.
Because now I'm like, oh man, like Michael Keaton's still doing his thing. Like he's made a comeback in his career, right? Like I could have got 30 more minutes of just Michael Keaton doing Michael Keaton things and Beetlejuice doing his thing. Like the whole ending was just so climactic for me. Like it was so tense, and he's like, all right, hurry up, go on with the vows. I don't know, it was just so like good, and Michael Keaton was just so fantastic. I don't know. I just loved it. So I'm excited for that part of it.
I'm curious for the new movie. I don't know if I'd say I'm excited, but I'm curious. I really want to see what they do with it, and like if they're, true to the original. It's been what, like 40 years?
Yeah, like crazy long.
So this
was like an 88
This
or
is
something.
an insane gap
Yeah.
for a sequel.
I think it might be the longest gap between the original and the sequel.
Yeah, we should actually look that up.
Yeah.
Because that's why I'm like super curious. And just to see like how effects impact it. Like you said, like if they actually use stop motion or practical effects. Because I know Tim Burton likes practical effects, but I know he also does a lot of CGI in his more recent movies. So I'll be very curious to see what direction he goes.
Yeah.
But I'm not excited about Beetlejuice.
I know, with
the character. He's so
He's
he grosses me out so much.
Well, the last thing I'll say is that consider the alternative, okay? Beetlejuice originally was written as a Middle Eastern character and was supposed to be played by Sammy Davis Jr. And so,
oh boy,
like that. I mean,
Sammy Davis wouldn't have aged well.
Yeah, like Sammy Davis Jr. is cool, but like, and I don't, but I just don't think it would have been as iconic as what Beetlejuice has become. And so, like that whole thing, and then apparently the studio originally like didn't like the title, like using Beetlejuice as a title, because it meant nothing at that time, right?
Right, and he's not even like important until halfway through the movie.
Yeah, like it doesn't even show up.
Yeah,
and and it puts a lot of focus on this potentially like creepy, polarizing character, right? And then so they originally wanted to call it House Ghosts.
Yeah, I heard that.
Which just sounds so forgettable and like whatever, so generic. And then like Tim Burton was like very opposed to that. So as a joke, he suggested the name Scared Sheetless. And then he was actually horrified when they were like, oh, like, yeah, like that could be good, I
actually think that's a super clever title.
That is pretty clever. Because then they do the whole like gag sheet with thing. The sheets, So that could have been okay. But yeah, like focusing in on Beetlejuice and focusing on this character. And I just love the little thing of like Beetlejuice can't say his own name, but he wants everyone else to say it. So even when he like puts the flyers out and the news ads and the commercials, yeah, his way of trying to get people to say it. And then he does the whole like charades bit. Like that was fun. So yeah, I think this movie is about this character, and this character works still.
Yeah.
It's so fun to watch.
I do prefer the musical, but I'm a musical person.
Yeah, you are musical. So you watched the whole musical?
I've watched half of the bootleg.
Okay. So you haven't seen like a live production?
No.
That would be even more fun.
That would be so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely go see that.
Okay. Well, it's a little discouraging that you gave it a 2.5, but I was between a 3.5 and a 4 even. Yeah.
I am shocked.
Yeah.
I like genuinely thought you were going to hate this movie.
No, like I initially was kind of like meh about it.
Wow.
But Beetlejuice was just so good, Michael Keaton. But I think if he started out more prominently like in the beginning part of the movie, and was more consistently there throughout, then I think I would get to a 4.
Wow.
But because he's only in the I think I read that he's in the movie for only 17 minutes.
Wow.
which is crazy.
That kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
He does like disappear and you kind of forget about him and then he comes back.
Yeah. I mean, they talk about him a lot, so they hype him up a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think because he's just not in it enough, like I land at a 3.5.
There you go.
So, lock in your rating?
Locking it in.
2.5? Man, okay. Well,
it might have been a 2 my first watch.
Oh.
So I actually went up.
Okay.
I think. I could be wrong.
All right. Well, we are going to do Beetlejuice next episode.
Yep.
So hopefully you guys can watch that. We should, we'll see how the rating goes. But we do want to do a journey through Tim Burton's whole filmography.
Yep.
We're going to go through chronologically. And we're going to do a tier list.
Yes, we've got must watch, worth a look, and I'll pass. So This is basically, we wanted to keep it simple. Normally, it's like 5, but it's a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah,
so,
we're trying to like really find his best movies.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like everything in the I'll pass, you can maybe break it down more, but it kind of seems unnecessary.
We've got one disclaimer. Because I didn't do my homework. Neither of us have seen Frankenweenie.
Yeah.
So we're not going to rank that one. Or we could just put it in must watch because we haven't seen it.
So the first movie we have up is Pee-wee's Big Adventure from 1985 is where we start. Now, have you seen it?
I have not.
Okay, so I did watch it. I might have watched it when I was younger. I don't remember. But
his first movie.
Yeah. I would put this in I'll pass. It is a weird movie.
Oh boy.
Now, have you heard of Pee-wee the character?
Barely.
Okay. He's just a weird character in general. He had a long-running TV show that actually won like awards and stuff. I think it was like Emmy winning, but it's like a kids show. And I grew up watching it, and I actually was like a Pee-wee fan. But then I watched this movie recently, and this movie came like right before the TV show. So because this movie did well, it kind of spawned the TV show.
Yeah.
But the TV show is very much a kid's show.
Oh.
Totally.
And the movie's not?
The movie is not. The movie is like,
wild.
It gets really dark in points. Like it has all these like dream sequences, and like it has like some characters that have like the Tim Burton like stop motion creepy stuff. And so it's just like a really weird movie. But also like the movie itself is just not good. It's just cringe a lot of times. The Pee-wee character is like borderline annoying most of the time. There's some moments that he's kind of funny, but the best way I can explain Pee-wee Herman, at least in this movie, is like you take Mr. Rogers and then Mr. Bean.
I was thinking about Mr. Bean.
Yeah, like he has a lot of Mr. Bean mannerisms, and you mash them together in the mind of Tim Burton, and out comes like Pee-wee Herman,
Wow.
So
Interesting.
I would say pass. I think it's probably one of his worst movies that he's made. But if you want to watch it just for the sake of seeing like the beginning, the first directorial debut, like you do still get some Tim Burton like stylistic things, moments. Yeah.
All right, Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice is next up.
What if we do? So my thought is it's worth a look because it's iconic.
Yeah.
I don't think I would say it's a must watch though, because I would not recommend a lot of people this movie. You have to be a very specific person for me to recommend this movie to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, I personally would say that I agree with you, but this is such an iconic movie.
But like think about some of the people that we both know.
Okay.
And you would not recommend they watch this.
No.
Right?
It doesn't age that well overall.
I think I can think of at least 3 people that both of us would not recommend people watch.
Yeah. I think the average person like today, if you were watching it for the first time, you would be like, what is this? And not really be into it.
Which is why I think it's like worth a look, because like obviously it's, it's unforgettable.
Yeah.
But
You know
it's
what?
not quite a must-watch.
I agree, because this is ranking according to the way we like the movies, not like how important or iconic they are.
That's
right?
true. That's true.
Okay.
And you gave it a mid rating too.
If I get a 4, I would maybe fight for it more. But yeah,
All right.
the fact that you were lower on it.
Batman,
the original, movie,
the first one he did.
Movie. What would you do?
Okay, wait. Who's the bad guy in this one again?
Joker.
Oh, yes, Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, Jack Nicholson's Joker.
Oh, see, if you're a Batman fan, you have to watch this. But, ooh,
like, did you like this movie?
I think I gave it a middle rating.
Interesting.
But
did you see it when you were younger or when you were older?
I saw them when I was younger.
Okay.
Yeah.
I loved this movie when I was young. I saw it, like, I think when it came out.
Okay.
Because I'm a child of the 80s. And I rewatched it and I was kind of scared.
Oh.
Because I was like, oh, is it going to hold up? And it 100% holds up. This movie, I gave this a 4.5 on a rewatch.
I would give it a must watch then.
Okay. I agree with you.
I would allow you to put it there.
It has to be.
Yeah.
So can I just make an additional argument for why it's so great?
Okay.
Before this movie came out, all we had were like the Adam West TV shows, you know, in the kind of silly cartoony. So all just very silly. Now, a few years before this, Frank Miller does his like Dark Knight, like game-breaking comic. And that did influence this. But even on that, like I kind of flipped through that comic recently. And there is like a storyline that, you know, Tim Burton takes from that, you know, and puts it into this movie. But really the aesthetic for what we know of Batman, like the all black, you know, kind of thick rubber like costume and all that, the look of Gotham on screen, all of that came just from this movie. And we still lived in that all the way through like those next 4 or 5 movies into even Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins was still in that kind of darker Tim Burton-ish like Gotham until like The Dark Knight came out. The Dark Knight. And then Christopher Nolan made it like modern, right? Yeah. Like in the real world. So, but that whole era. He took out
all the goofiness.
Yeah. But up until that movie, like all that Batman that we know, like it really was influenced by this single movie. Like the aesthetics and like the Batmobile. Like the most beautiful Batmobile ever designed came just from this movie. Like
the most beautiful.
Yeah, it's like a work of art.
Oh my gosh.
It is by far the best Batmobile. Yeah, so for so many reasons. I mean, Jack Nicholson, like his performance was fantastic.
Yeah.
Like I understand why they never tried to do Joker until The Dark Knight. Like,
yeah, I remember you saying that. You were like really worried that Heath Ledger wasn't gonna.
Yeah.
And then he
took it to another level that we never could have imagined.
Yeah.
But Jack Nicholson, like I thought rewatching it would come across campy, but it doesn't. Like it's still such a good performance.
All right, moving on.
Yeah. So that one.
Edward Scissorhands. Okay. That's a must watch.
It is a must watch.
That is my favorite Tim Burton movie of all of them.
I agree.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh, we actually agree on something.
This is my favorite. This is a 5.0 movie for me.
That's right. Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, it's in my top 50.
Is probably a 4.5 for me.
Yeah.
Maybe a 4. I think I gave it a 4.
Oh.
But it's good.
4.5.
I can't remember.
This is, oh my gosh. Johnny Depp, probably his best performance ever, I think.
And it's so unique. It's so unique.
It's a very great fantasy movie, but with like a darkness to it. But what I also loved, so I watched this when I was a little older, I think, like maybe in my teens. And I remember back then it was just like an instant classic for me.
Yeah.
And then I have not rewatched it, being afraid that it was not going to live up to it. And I rewatched it recently for this. And it still holds up.
That's something you got to know about Albert. He's really afraid of rewatching movies because he's scared that he won't like them the second time.
Yeah, like my favorite movie of all time, Memento. I have not seen this since its original viewing.
I'm the opposite. The more times I watch it, the more I like it. Well, if it's a good enough movie.
It has to almost keep holding up.
Basically, it has to be rewatchable for it to be in my top. Yeah.
Yeah, but thankfully on a rewatch it held up. And the one thing watching it older now that I think it went over my head the first time is how much of an important theme it is, like the conformity of like their suburban society.
Oh yeah.
And how when Edward Scissorhands comes in, that it's like you would think that he's initially ostracized because he's like disabled and all that stuff, and it has very heavy themes of like, you know, disability and all that kind of stuff and how we look at that. But they actually kind of take him in, and he's kind of like accepted initially because he fits like certain he has something to offer, you know. It gets into this whole exploitation thing, and how sometimes we do that even with like, you know, bringing people who are like disabled and have like some kind of things on TV shows and, you know, whatever. But once people live their usefulness, like in our, you know, society, like we just ostracize them, you know, and that's exactly what happens to him. And I will say it is probably my favorite unique fantasy movie.
Ooh.
Yeah. So not like witches and all that kind of stuff, but it is still very fantastic.
Yeah.
It's like a very fairy tale world, but it's so good.
So good.
Yeah, so
I
good.
agree with you. All right, Batman Returns.
Yeah.
This one, I'd say it's worth a look, but I don't think it's a must watch.
Okay. I think I would agree with you actually.
Yeah.
When I initially saw this, I loved it. I probably would have put it in must watch.
Yeah.
But rewatching it, it didn't hold up for me.
I think Danny DeVito really, like, he's so gross.
Yeah.
But he kills it. It's
does.
like Michael Keaton is Beetlejuice, honestly. Like, it's just such a nasty character, but he did a good job.
I mean,
I don't know.
I would say the argument for making it a must watch would be because of Danny DeVito's Penguin and even Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman.
Yeah.
I think she is still to date the best Catwoman. But rewatching it, I actually understood why. Because it suddenly takes like this dark, really extremely dark tone and like a very, very like perverted tone. Like it gets so much into the sexual innuendo like consistently that is so cringy that I'm like, man, especially with how great the first one was and how accessible it was for everybody. And it still had the right balance. Yeah. Like it almost is like a case of when a director gets full control.
Yeah.
And it actually hurts the movie more.
Yeah.
But it did give us a great Penguin performance. So it is worth a look.
All right.
Yeah.
Next one is Ed Wood.
Yeah.
And I know we're going to disagree.
Okay.
I think you're going to say I'll pass, but I think it's worth a look.
Yeah. So I gave it a 2.5, which is pretty low.
And I think I gave it a...
considered a...
What did I give it? I think I gave it a 3.5.
3.5? Yeah.
I think it's worth a look.
I mean, what did you like about it?
I think overall, it's basically a biopic. And it's very interesting because it explores the life of a person that like nobody probably would have heard of otherwise or remembered.
Considered the worst director
Considered the worst director of all time. And I think that there was an element of like Tim Burton relating to this character a lot, or this person. So him being the one to make it is very interesting. And then I also just think like it's the least Tim Burton movie probably out of all of his movies.
Well, I don't think that's true, but
okay.
Yeah, but it is one of the less Tim Burton-y movies. Yeah.
And I think that it made it very interesting. I also know you didn't really like Johnny Depp's performance, or maybe just the character.
I think I
really thought he did a great job.
Yeah, he did do a good job. I do think he gave a good performance, but he was almost too much of a caricature.
Yeah.
That he didn't feel like a real, like Ed Wood was a real person, but he's almost too like silly throughout.
Yeah. I felt like he was real, but I don't know. I think it was his relationship with the, what's his name?
Bela Lugosi. Yeah. So I was closer to I'll pass, but I think
meet me in the middle here. Meet me
yeah,
in the middle.
I think for the fact that his relationship angle with Bela Lugosi and
that's the best part.
Yeah, and Bela Lugosi's performance is fantastic. I mean, not the real person, but like Martin Landau. I
don't
think,
remember, but it was very good.
Yeah, but it was a really good performance. So I do think it's worth a look. I will say I would have enjoyed this a lot more if I was more familiar with Ed Wood's movies. All right, so Mars Attacks to me is an easy. I'll pass. Did you watch it?
I didn't watch it.
Yeah, it had some moments, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. But yeah, overall, I'll pass. Great cast though. Good ensemble cast.
Sleepy Hollow. I have not seen either.
I did see Sleepy Hollow. I didn't rewatch it, but I don't remember really thinking much of it, even when I first saw it. So I think I'll pass on that also.
Dang.
Planet of the Apes, also probably considered one of his worst movies.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's pretty slammed on. Like, people kind of kill this movie. Remake of the original, and yeah. So I'll pass on that. Okay, Big Fish.
I think that's a must-watch.
Ooh, a must-watch.
I think it is. Ooh. I don't know. I did grow up on it.
Yeah.
And fun fact, I watched it for the first time in Thai, like a Thai dub.
Because
we only had it in Thai. You couldn't like change it to English. So I watched this movie probably 2 or 3 times, not in English. And somehow I was still invested. I couldn't follow the storyline. I had no idea what was going on, but I wanted to like try and figure it out really bad because the visuals and everything and the way the movie works, it's so weird. And so when I finally watched it for the first time in English, I was like, this is not at all what I like thought it was.
Wow, interesting. So when
I know,
but when you rewatched
it,
but when you rewatched in English, like you still really liked it.
Yeah, I was like, oh wow, this is better than I thought it was. I think.
Yeah.
But I feel like just because of my experience, which is a very unique experience,
you like it so much.
I feel like it's one of his better movies.
Yeah. So I actually used to think after Edward Scissorhands, this was my favorite Tim Burton movie.
Okay.
And
there you go.
Yeah. So I really liked it. I think when I rewatched it, I went a little lower. I think it used to be like a 4.5 when I first watched it, even though I wasn't rating
that's high
movies back then. But on a rewatch, I give it a 4. So I was kind of like in between a must watch and a worth a look.
It sounds like it's a must watch.
Yeah. I will say that I think it's a must watch because it gives a different side of Tim Burton.
Yeah.
And it's probably the best gateway Tim Burton if you're not really into his like typical creepy style. Because it still has a very good fantasy element to it.
It's very,
but it's a very kind of wholesome
tall
movie.
Tale movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Chocolate Factory.
Oh gosh.
Charlie and the Chocolate
This is a very controversial movie because everyone thought he did. Like, a lot of people were like, this is great. And a lot of people were like, this is garbage compared to the original.
So I would give it a pass. I have not rewatched it since I first watched it.
Okay.
But I remember watching it, and maybe it's because I wasn't a kid, but I just remember being like, eh.
It is so weird, but I didn't hate it.
You didn't hate it. So you think it's worth a look?
I don't know. I did also like grow up on it as a kid. So like from a child's perspective, it was like a very fun, entertaining movie. Mm-hmm. But from an adult's perspective, I'm kind of like, I'll pass.
I think the original is still better. Like,
the original is way better.
Yeah, Gene Wilder is like actually makes sense as a character. This Johnny Depp version, this Johnny Depp version is just like, what is this?
Super weird.
It's just so weird. All right, Corpse Bride. I know you love Corpse Bride.
Yeah,
Corpse Bride.
That's a must watch.
So I actually gave it a 3.5. I never saw this.
That's actually better than I thought.
Oh, really?
Like when you first told me you watched it, I was like, oh, he gave it like a 2.
Yeah, because I did not watch this when I was younger, and I rewatched it.
This is classic.
I watched it for the first time.
An absolute classic Tim Burton movie. I have some
problems with it because I think
it's so iconic.
The love triangle. He does a really good job of fleshing those characters out in such a short runtime.
Yeah.
But almost too much the fact that Corpse Bride becomes the main protagonist.
Yeah.
Like over the Johnny Depp character. And to me, that's like weird. Like, and I will say, whenever they're in like the world of the the world of the dead, it's like very colorful, and it really shows like in the mind of Tim Burton, like the world of the dead is so much more colorful and interesting and full of life than the real world.
Yeah.
Because every time in the real world, it's just so like
drab,
and even the animation looks gross. And I don't know. You want to give it a must watch?
I think it's a must watch.
Okay.
I feel like it's like a great, one of the best like Halloween movies. Like if you ever need a good Halloween movie to watch for a party or an event, like this is a great choice because it's, yeah.
Also, like he is known for his stop motion, and
it's very good.
Yeah, this is like one of his only real animated ones. 3.5. I was in between, so I'm down with a must watch.
Yes.
All right, Todd Sweeney. Or Sweeney Todd.
Todd Sweeney.
Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street.
His musical.
Yeah.
All right, so...
You love musicals.
I do. I don't really like Sweeney Todd, the musical.
Because it's super dark.
It's
and really gory.
Way too dark and nasty for me. But some of the songs, I mean, it is a Sondheim, I think, and he's a master. So I still appreciate it. But I think it's a pass for me.
Okay, that's what I would have given it.
Okay, yeah.
I saw it when it came out, and I don't really like musicals. I'm not against musicals.
If you like dark stuff and you like musicals, this is a must watch.
Yeah.
But
I only like dark stuff, and I don't like musicals, and I still didn't really like it.
Yeah.
I'm surprised by you putting it as I'll pass, but I'm down with that. All right, Alice in the Wonderland. I thought I had seen this. I actually don't think I've seen this. So I think I'll have to defer to you on this.
Okay, another one of his remakes starring Johnny Depp. You know what? It's similar to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, where it's kind of like...
Those two movies in my mind are the same movie.
Yeah, it's very similar because he sort of took a classic work and Tim Burtonized it.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's better than Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Ooh, interesting.
The sequel was completely terrible. Oh, man,
I didn't even know you made a sequel of it.
I don't know if it's a pass or a worth a look.
Oh, okay. You're between
I'm between those two because I haven't seen it since it came out, and I remember being entertained by it, but I honestly don't think it holds up.
But you haven't rewatched it.
I haven't rewatched it since it came out. I remember I kind of liked what they did by tying in other Lewis Carroll works, like the Jabberwocky is in it, and the Jabberwocky is just a poem that he wrote. So they did tie in more of his work. We'll say it's worth a look, and this is just going off of your
memory
original watch.
Yeah. If you haven't rewatched it, I will say what you're saying about it makes it more intriguing for me that I want to actually check it out.
Yeah, I still think I would have given it like a 3, probably.
Okay.
Just being honest. But.
All right, next up we have Dark Shadows. I had not even heard about this until we went through his filmography for this. And
wow.
So I actually watched it. Did you get to
I did not watch it, and I've only heard bad things about it.
Yeah, so it looks, even from the poster, like you could see here, like it looks like it's going to be a terrible, terrible movie. But I will say, I actually thought it started out pretty interesting. It's like a fish out of water story.
Okay.
Of Johnny Depp who turned into a vampire, and he comes back in the modern day, and he's like, what's all this modern stuff, and there's like a really funny bit with the McDonald's sign.
Well, this is also a remake.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So I thought it actually started off pretty good. I would have almost put it as a worth a watch, but then the movie just unravels and becomes so random. Like there's a whole bit with Alice Cooper, and you're just like, what is going on here?
Oh my gosh.
And the whole second and third act of the movie falls apart. That I would give it a pass.
Yeah.
Which was really unfortunate because it actually was like going somewhere.
Dang.
Okay, so we haven't seen Frankenweenie. Now we did watch his short, Vincent, which he made before he made any of these features. It kind of stars also like a zombie dog that the Vincent character makes. And it's all stop motion and black and white. And
so we think that he's had the idea for Frankenweenie like since the beginning.
Yeah. And so I actually really looking forward to watching this. I think it's very promising. So I would put it in worth the watch.
Yeah, we're just guessing here.
Yeah, that's a guess.
It's worth a look because we're going to watch it.
Yeah, we're going to watch it. But I mean, based off of what you saw in Vincent, what did you think of Vincent?
It was cute. I liked it.
I thought it was so well done, right? And
yeah. Especially that he was like 24. So.
Yeah, so I definitely want to watch it. Okay, Big Eyes.
Big Eyes.
Did you get to watch Big Eyes?
No.
So it
was really bad.
I really liked this movie when I saw it, but then I rewatched it and I wasn't sure. I actually really, really liked it even more on a rewatch.
Wow, that's saying something.
Must watch.
Okay.
You have to watch this movie.
I have to watch it.
So much in this movie, so please watch it. It's so good. You guys definitely should check out Big Eyes.
All right, Miss Peregrine's Home for the Innocent?
Children.
Oh, Home for the Peculiar Children. Right. This is based off a book.
This. Yeah.
So it's adapted from a children's series. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be a pass.
Ooh, okay.
It's honestly like it's a decent adaptation, but like I sort of felt like it was an adaptation that didn't need to happen, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. I did watch it and I think I watched it.
Was it bad? Or...
It's not like it was. It just wasn't great.
Okay.
I don't know.
Just kind of mid.
Like, I don't think I'd recommend anybody watch it.
Okay.
Which is why I'm saying I'll pass.
Yeah.
Because I can't think of a person that I'd be like, oh, you'd like this movie.
All right. And then last, we have Dumbo, 2019. So it's been a minute since he's put out a movie.
Another Disney remake.
Yeah. So I just watched this last night. Have you seen it? So I thought it was going to be terrible. And it was terrible.
Okay. I thought it was going to be terrible. And that's why I didn't watch it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It was just the script was terrible. You had so many characters just doing things all of a sudden for no motivation. And it was to the point that I was like, okay, maybe it's because it's a kid's movie. But then I was like, even watching it in the lens of this is a kid's movie, I was like, this is so bad.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like borderline unwatchable at times. I wanted to turn it off, and it's 2 hours. I'm just like,
that's so long.
Literally, at one point, I was like, oh, okay, this movie's about
word.
to end. It's like the climax, I thought. And then I paused it, and it was still 30 minutes left. And I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah.
Dang.
It's a hard pass.
So. Well, I'm glad I've basically seen all of
his must watches.
Yeah.
Except for Big Eyes. You gotta watch Big Eyes.
And Frankenweenie.
Yeah, so
but
we'll watch those.
Those 8 I've seen.
He's been pretty consistent. I mean, yes, he had a long bad stretch, but he's pretty
balanced.
He's a pretty underrated director, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he deserves a little more credit.
And then we're gonna have to add Beetlejuice.
Yeah, so we'll see after we watch Beetlejuice. Go out, watch it. We should support our local theaters when we have a good movie like this come out by a good director. Yeah, let us know what you guys thought of our ratings, if you guys agree, disagree. Also, if you guys are excited about Beetlejuice, go follow us on
YouTube, Spotify, Letterboxd, Apple Podcasts.
And then join us next Thursday where we will review Beetlejuice. So see you then.